There's this recent video footage that came to my attention on Twitter. A lot of people were talking about this. This is a police-involved incident where an old lady, I believe she's about 73 years old, was actually pulled over. She had stolen $13, I think, worth of merchandise or something from a store, but she does have dementia, which was confirmed later by the family. And the officers are involved in this type of situation where they're basically saying that they were being extremely brutal with her, overdoing the struggle, and basically abused her, especially considering the situation where they should have known that something was off with this older woman, that it was a minor situation. It was just overreacting to this type of situation. So before I get into this video explaining exactly how we're supposed to make all of this information out to be, just a quick reminder to like this video, to subscribe to the channel, but the best way you can help me out here is to share this video. So let's get into a little bit about what is happening in this story. As I mentioned, 73-year-old woman was pulled over. She's walking down the road and she is pulled over by the police officers, and I'll show a little bit of the video of what's actually happening here. Now, she had shoplifted $13 worth of groceries apparently, and I guess someone called the police about it because Walmart actually recovered the items anyways. And here's a bit of kind of how this initial interaction started off. So she's actually, the guy is basically telling her to stop. And then he starts approaching her at this point, and he basically, and you can see that he's kind of coming up. He's got her attention at this point. Okay, so there she is there, and let me skip a little bit later. So she kind of didn't reply or didn't really respond to him, and all of a sudden the guy just grabs the lady and just kind of forces her to the ground all of a sudden out of nowhere. So this is like kind of an overreaction already based on what's going on. They immediately handcuff her. The real big kind of thing out of this was the fact that at this point here, because of the way that he was pushing her arm up into her, or just up with it behind her back, that they actually dislocated her arm at this point. So let's go on a little bit later here. And then by this time they had her on the ground. They've got 3 different officers putting her down at this point. Like I said, you can see, and now they're putting her in a car at this point. Now, the issue they have here, too, is that she was basically, like I said, this whole time, she's like, I didn't steal anything, I didn't steal anything. Of course she did. But they ought to know that, obviously, this lady had some type of issue, something like that. They're carrying her. So now they've got her with two handcuffs up to a bench now. And then now the family is basically suing them. Now, the biggest thing that they have here, problem that they have with this stuff right now, is that they are talking about this part of the video where she actually, or where the police department is actually filing. Let me pull up this part here so you can actually see that because it's not showing up here. The actual department here is, or the lawyer for the lady here is actually, a lot of them are suing. The family is suing now because they put that she didn't have any injuries. If you actually look at the sheet here, they put that she didn't have any injuries as a result of what they were doing. Now, the reason why this is a problem is because of the fact that she, in fact, did have, injuries when they got her at this time. And you can see here where it says that they put injuries or illnesses listed as none. Now, obviously, we have to keep in mind what's going on when a police officer is pulling somebody over. Once again, I've done 911 dispatching for about 2 years. My dad was a police officer for 26 years. A lot of the stuff you don't know when you're pulling somebody over, obviously. But at the same time, the way that they're handling this lady, right, like just kind of out of nowhere, is obviously an overreaction. It's obviously, if you're looking at trying to say that they had an excessive use of force, that's what you would probably call an excessive use of force. Here's the real thing, though, because I'm not here to defend bad cops, and no conservative is here to defend bad cops. Bad cops should be, fired from their jobs, should, whatever charges that need to be charged, let it go ahead and happen. If we're talking about this situation. The point still is the same, though. At the end of the day, let's look at when this event actually took place. This event happened last year. It happened last year, I believe it was in June. Where were we at? We're not hearing about this case, by the way, until literally a year later today. Why is that the case? Could it possibly be the fact that this didn't land at the right time when all the racial things were happening at the peak of its kind of importance last year, of everybody talking about it, that this type of stuff got swept under the rug because it didn't fit the narrative? Ultimately, we all want the same thing. If a police officer does an objectively bad thing, we want them fired. That's it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. There's by no means, the problem is that we as just general people with common sense understand that there are people out there that are not perfect. People in general are not perfect. That's always the way that it is. Police officers are never going to be perfect. There's no way for that to be the case. They're going to make mistakes. And you had all the people on the left like, oh, conservatives are just going to completely defend this no matter what the situation was. Now, granted, we don't know all of the details. I mean, we saw a video, but that's one video. We didn't see the rest of the angles. We didn't see exactly what took place leading up to that. We don't know if the officers knew this lady, if they've never seen this lady before. We don't know if she's a repeat case. And they're just like, look, we're tired of dealing with this lady. We don't know if they've had to basically arrest her or deal with these types of situations with her 30 times in the past. We don't know if this was her first encounter with police or not. We don't know some of this information that can actually infect or actually be a part of what's going on here. There's even a video a little bit lower where they're showing that some of the cops, and it's really hard to hear anyways, to be honest with you, but they're showing some of the cops that are sitting here and they're supposedly listening to or watching this video back from the body cam footage and laughing at it. If we're looking at this situation, we can totally say, hey, look, if that's what they're laughing at, if that's what's actually going on, those cops should be fired. Plain and simple. What's the problem with people saying that? If that's the case, we don't have to sit here and just say that no matter, the cops can do no wrong ever. That's not what this is about. The problem is when you look at the BLM stuff like that, the real tragedy is that stuff like this that is actually bad it was completely swept under the rug last year because of people like George Floyd. People that were actual criminals. People that didn't have an actual case of dementia. You know what I mean? People that didn't have some minor offense or whatever it is. I mean, the lady really didn't even resist arrest too much in this type of situation either. I think she was just mainly confused. But either way, she's an old lady. Obviously, she's not some 6'3" guy that, that requires 4 to 5 cops to basically hold him at each one of his extremities to get him in a police car. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about a person that's struggling with excited delirium. We're talking about an entirely different situation here. And that's why this is absolutely important when we're actually going through these types of subjects and these topics. This isn't about saying that cops can do no wrong. Humans in general are fallible. Nobody is saying that any group of humans in any particular profession are perfect in any way. So the Democrats that are basically looking at a situation and saying, well, it must be racism because of this particular situation. They're the only ones that are doing this. Like I said, the saddest part about this is that this story was completely swept under the rug. Nobody had an idea or clue about this happening at all. And once again, for anybody that's one of these BLM supporters watching this video, all I have to say is this. If you don't know who Tony Timba is, don't talk to me. Don't talk. I don't want to hear from you about what police brutality is. Because that was another situation where a white male was one where he called the cops on himself. And he was schizophrenic. He had been drinking a little bit. And he had called the cops because he was like, look, I'm afraid that I'm going to be in danger of myself because I took these drugs or whatever. And they had their knee on his back for much longer. They were laughing at him literally right there. EMS shows up. The guy's dead. He lost his life for that. You know what? He's not getting a gold casket. He's not getting a whole section of a town, dedicated to his memorial. None of that. Most people still don't have a clue who he is. And yet that's the situation we're in. It's these cases that get swept under the rug, and BLM, the Democrats, are only going to focus on what they deem to be fit the narrative that they want to set. Whereas my thought, and I think the thought for anybody is, if anybody, it doesn't matter if it's a police officer. Why are we so busy focused on police officers? If anybody is doing something that is legitimately against the law, that is legitimately not correct, then we're going to call it out. You don't get to claim police brutality when the suspect was literally trying to take the life of another girl. You don't get to call it that. Okay? I don't care how woke you're trying to be. You don't get to do that. And I'm not going to stand by and let you do that. However, we can objectively look at things with common sense because we have common sense. We don't care about the color of the people involved. We care about what's actually taking place and the facts, that's a big one, surrounding the situations involved. So, a tragic situation is not great. This isn't a good look for the cops involved, and I'm sure that they're going to face the charges as well or whatever, be fired and whatever needs to happen to them as a result of doing this. That's what's supposed to happen. That's the system working, as it has always worked, continuously, over and over again, and it's proven to be the case. So with that being said, I thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.